Welcome to Eugene Cannabis TV. You made the trip, and here we are at episode 561. And we've got some news stories to tell you about and some announcements. First thing I want to start right off, tell you who I am. I'm Dank, and been with the show for a few years. You might have watched it when we had that guy with the bag over his head. Well, that was me too. So thanks for taking the time to watch Eugene Cannabis TV. It's a labor of love to produce the show. It's not only a labor of love for the plant, cannabis, but a labor of love to be able to communicate to others what about the incredible plant. We're always looking for guests, and you're welcome to come by every Monday night at 7:30 at the behind Sheldon High School at the Community TV 29 studios at 7:30. And come on by to visit, come on by to be on the show, or just check out what we do here. It's all up to you, but love to see you. So many thanks to the Community Television 29 group for providing the means to produce this show. We definitely encourage you to look into joining the Community Television 29 organization. It's a lot of fun, and we get to meet some great people. You can always watch the show, of course, on cable, Comcast 29. That's Wednesday nights at 8:30 and Thursday mornings at 8:30. Or you can go to YouTube, type in Eugene Cannabis TV, and pick your episode. And again, we're up to 561 at this time. So let me tell you a little bit about a group we visited with today. My friend Chris and I went to a little meetup that we found on Facebook. This is the Oregon Cannabis Co-op. It's a group forming a group called the Oregon Cannabis Co-op. Some folks out of Roseburg came up, and a guy supporting them with the Emerald City Cannabis Tours. And so the Oregon Cannabis Co-op, what they've said here is that we have a dream to educate people about cannabis and its issues, to produce medical cannabis and distribute the products to OMMP patients, to produce industrial cannabis, hemp, and sell the raw materials. Oregon Cannabis Co-op charter members are needed to fill necessary roles for the organization to prosper. So if that sounds like something you might be interested in, just do a search on Facebook. Remember, that's Oregon Cannabis Co-op, and you can get hooked up with them and check them out. So I wanted to, an interesting thing happened here on Normal. I'm a president of a local Willamette Valley Normal. Well, we just found out that Russ Belleville, whom we know real well, has formed a chapter, the Portland Normal. Now there was the Oregon Normal, which was the Portland chapter. I'm not too clear on whether it's still in operation or not, but there's a new chapter has been formed called Portland Normal, and this is the press release. And this was, it says, announcement of new Portland marijuana consumers lobby. National Organization for the Reform of Marijuana Laws announces formation of the Portland, Oregon chapter. The group represents the interests of responsible adult marijuana consumers, seeks consumer-friendly regulations, serving Portland's best interests. As the 2015 legislature begins, the issue of implementing regulations for the marijuana industry looms large. Lobbying groups have formed representing the interests of growers, retailers, medical marijuana patients, industrial hemp farmers, and the cities and the counties. But until now, no group has stepped up to represent the interests of the adult marijuana consumers. The National Organization for the Reform of Marijuana Laws has worked for over 40 years to represent the interests of responsible adults who enjoy marijuana. The Washington, D.C.-based nonprofit has given the go-ahead for the formation of a Portland, Oregon-based chapter known as Portland Normal to lead lobbying efforts to represent the interests of cannabis consumers. While Oregon approved of commercial marijuana legalization with the greatest margin of any state, over 56% of the vote, most districts in Portland passed Measure 91 with votes in the 70% to almost 90% range, explains Portland Normal Executive Director Russ Belleville. Yet Portland's representatives in the state legislature and the city's executives are seeking to place restrictions and burdens on adult marijuana users, clearly out of touch with the will of city voters and the lessons learned from mistakes made in Denver and Seattle. The key philosophy of Portland NORML is that responsible adult marijuana consumers should be provided the same rights, privileges, and responsibilities as adult alcohol and tobacco consumers, whenever practical. For 80 years, our society has accepted and regulated the sale of adult use of two of the most addictive and dangerous drugs, alcohol and tobacco, Belleville states. Like booze, marijuana alters perceptions and mood. Like cigarettes, marijuana produces smoke that can intrude on non-smokers' right to fresh air. But marijuana brings with it far less damage and danger to that individual consumer and the non-consuming public. So there is no logical reason why adult marijuana consumers should be treated with any less restricted more severely, and denied the same privileges we extend to responsible adult drinkers and smokers. Portland NORML's lobbying efforts this session will focus on those with 10 core principles: maintaining the Oregon Medical Marijuana Program registry card system and its privileges, in integrating all commercial marijuana production and sales into Measure 91's framework, establishment of adult personal use venues like vapor lounges or coffee shops, retention of the state's sole right of taxation on marijuana, reduction of junk science DUI standards. While we believe no responsible adult should drive a vehicle while impaired by marijuana, we strongly oppose the imposition of per se standards for determining driver impairment based on blood, urine, saliva, or breath testing. Affirmation of the people's right to ban marijuana commerce, not the government. Marijuana consumers' right to work. Marijuana consumers' equal rights. The release of nonviolent marijuana prisoners, and expanded personal cultivation rules. Belleville concludes Portland can be the place that stands as the gold standard for how American cities can successfully regulate adult marijuana use and commerce in the future. We look forward to working with the city, the legislature, and other stakeholders in crafting that reality. So that was Russ Belleville, and so we'll see what develops with that. There was a Portland chapter years ago, and they had some infighting and disbanded, and that was when Oregon NORML was formed. So it's kind of interesting that it's back with the Portland NORML moniker, or at least that name is open again with the NORML chapter. And then this was from this was written by the Oregonian, the same subject. I just thought I'd see what the other group is saying, but not the other group, but rather what the Oregonian reported it. NORML starts Portland chapter to lobby for marijuana consumers' rights. This is written by Noel Crombie, and that's again was off the internet from the Oregonian, Oregon Live, and this is he printed January 15th. The country's oldest marijuana policy reform group has started a Portland chapter to lobby for the interest of cannabis consumers as Oregon begins a process of crafting rules for the new industry. The Washington, D.C. based National Organization for the Reform of Marijuana Laws formed a Portland chapter, Portland NORML. The group, headed by Portland-based radio host and cannabis activist Russ Belleville, will push for rules and regulations that ensure marijuana consumers are provided the same rights, privileges, and responsibilities as adult alcohol and tobacco consumers whenever practical. Like booze, marijuana alters perceptions and mood. Like cigarettes, marijuana produces smoke and can intrude on a non-smoker's right. Okay, that was all in the PR. He said that the group's lobbying efforts will focus on a range of areas, maintaining the medical marijuana program, merging commercial, medical, and recreational production sales into one system. So recreational marijuana consumers won't have to shop separately from medical marijuana patients. Now that is an interesting departure from the usual cannabis opinion. So that's going to be interesting to see how this all works out, because there's a lot of talk out of merging the medical and the recreational, and most medical don't want to any interference in their program, which is understandable for a variety of reasons. But it's interesting that the normal chapter is actually forming and then taking this stance from the get-go instead of, say, taking input on what they should do. And so it's as long as they do not come to see. Okay, you're talking about working under the influence. So Portland NORM was the latest group to join cannabis-related lobbying efforts already underway as the state begins the process of crafting rules for marijuana production, processing, and sales. Marijuana growers, processors, and dispensary owners have all hired lobbyists to push for their interests. Well, that may be, but what I'm concerned about is the everyday person like myself. I had 2 patients this last year. That means I only had 6 plants, so a very small time. So who's looking out for my interests? As either a grower for medical or as a personal grower that want to grow for myself, my 4 plants, which that's what the law calls for now, is to be able to grow 4 plants. It remains to be seen where we end up after the legislature gets done. But they claim that by passing the law and passing as large of a margin that it is, there's less chance that the Oregon legislature will try to do anything major. But frankly, I don't have a lot of faith in the legislature, and I think that they will try to cripple the law just as they have the medical marijuana program. So I think that's what we're looking at. So anyway, I'm really curious as who's looking out for us, the little guy. And as usual, there's no money in defending the little guy, so here we are. So let me run on some upcoming events here real quick. This is coming up January. This is where you need your pencil and paper. In fact, you know what? I forgot my note to tell you to get your pencil and paper out. But events coming up January 22nd. This is the Willamette Valley Normal meeting. This is this is our work. It's our work sessions. But anyway, we're still looking for people to come by. And let's see. Oh, I don't have the location. Send me an email to dankbagman@hotmail.com, and I'll get you the location on that. And then again on the 22nd, this is and again in Eugene, so it's definitely conflicting. This is the Oregonians for Industrial Hemp public meeting, World Cafe. That's at 449 Blair. So anyway, we talk about industrial hemp and how they're going to be growing in Oregon. So you can check on the progress and see how that's coming out and how that's going to work out. So that's the local group, and there's been quite a bit of activity on that, so I highly recommend that. Again, that's on the 22nd, which is a Thursday, and that's at the World Cafe at 449 Blair Boulevard. And that's the Oregonians for Industrial Hemp public meeting. They've been getting together now for several months, and we've got a good following. Some things are really going to be happening, I believe, this year in the hemp circle. So anyway, we're going to take a break here, and we'll be back for the second half of episode 561. We'll be right back.
Are you tired of following all the rules? Ready to let loose? Have a little fun? Sounds like you need to. Get high. And with Narcomex Incorporated, your direct-to-consumer drug trafficking solution, you can. Narcomex values your business. That's why we're your #1 supplier of drugs, and you're our #1 consumer. These billions can't be wrong. We work hard for your business and have killed not 1, not 2, but 3 Mexican police and 2 journalists just to keep you high with that very joint. Why, our commitment to keeping you supplied has killed over 17,000 people right next door. Traffickers, soldiers, journalists, prosecutors, you name it. We're that passionate about your business. We've even begun to destroy some of your favorite tropical beach destinations. Because if you smoke enough at home, you don't even need a beach. But don't legalize it or grow it at home. Let us do the work for you. Sure, consumers boycotted evil companies, but there's no need to boycott Narcomex Incorporated, your direct-to-consumer drug trafficking solution, also offering heroin, meth, and cocaine. Narcomex Incorporated. Live a little, and forget others won't.
Welcome to the second half of episode 561. You've got Dank here, and I've been telling you some news stories and things that are going on in the world of cannabis, and basically in the state of Oregon. I wanted to tell everybody to put down the bong for a minute and pick up pencil and paper, or at least find some pencil and paper, because there's going to be some information you need to take notes on. So the main thing is did you know that felons can vote in the state of Oregon? Well, they can, and a lot of people don't know that, and there's a lot of misinformation. So I'm here to tell you that felons can vote in the state of Oregon. So get registered and vote there, because I like to say most of the felons I know got a raw deal, and they should have say more than hardly anybody else, just about. So anyway, just a word to the wise, felons can vote. So I wanted to jump into talking about felons, talking about our Oregon legislature. They're getting ready to go in session, and of course they're getting ready to do slice and dice on Measure 91, as well as the OMMP programs like they do every year. So this is from the Associated Press, written by Stephen Dubois, January 17th this year, out of Portland. Oregon voters have spoken on marijuana legalization, and it's time for legislatures to have their say. Though the legislative session starts in February, lawmakers submitted more than a dozen bills this week dealing with marijuana. Many more are anticipated in the coming weeks as the state tries to design a retail market and regulatory system that avoids problems seen in Washington and Colorado, the first states to allow recreational pot use. Under Measure 91, Oregonians starting in July can possess up to 8 ounces of marijuana at home. Retail sales start somewhere in 2016 and will be regulated by the Oregon Liquor Control Commission. In Washington, where retailers began selling the drug in July, high tax rates and an initial supply shortage sent prices to more than 3 times what people pay on the black market. In Colorado, there have been several cases of people overdosing on high concentration edibles that look the same as candy and cookies. The Oregon legislature has established a joint committee on marijuana. Yes, they've heard the jokes. To help put Measure 91 into practice. Hot topics figure to include zoning rules for retailers, whether to allow local taxes on top of state taxes, and how to keep pot candy away from kids. It's a big job because there are so many elements to it, said State Senator Ginny Burdick, Democrat, Portland, committee co-chair. There's the regulation, the taxation, the issue of everything we can do to shut down the illegal market. Then there's the medical marijuana. All these issues are converging, and we'll just have to deal with all of them. The tax issue might be the thorniest and could end up in the court system. The measure approved by voters in November gives the state sole authority to tax marijuana, charging growers at a rate of $35 per ounce of bud, $10 an ounce of leaves, and $5 for each immature plant. Many cities, however, preemptively approved sales taxes on pot, either to make money or discourage retailers from doing business there. Because the measure is not a constitutional amendment, the measure has the power to make changes and okay local taxes. But if those taxes boost prices too much, Oregon risks losing sales to street dealers and a commercial advantage over neighboring Washington state. I don't think anybody thinks that we want to follow Washington's course and have taxation so high that the black market becomes more attractive, Burdick said. Another way Oregon wants to differentiate itself from Washington is adequate supply. Oregon growers already provide pot to medical marijuana dispensaries. House Bill 2676, sponsored by State Representative Peter Buckley, Democrat Ashland, directs the OLCC to register existing production sites, easing the way for that supply to enter the retail market for recreational use. The bill also provides for marijuana testing through the existing laboratory accreditation program. On edibles, a battle might emerge over potency and whether to sell them at all, and if sold, how to keep them away from children. We don't want to fall victim to the Joe Camel kind of syndrome in terms of advertising and marketing, said Jeff Sugarman, a lobbyist for the marijuana industry. But at the same time, there is a value, especially on the medical side, to edible products, and I don't think we should just throw them out altogether. Several early bills focus on the safety of children, including Senate Bill 145 requires medical marijuana facilities and marijuana retailers to post warnings about the effects of pot on pregnant women. Senate Bill 162 prohibits marijuana grow sites and licensed producers, processors, and sellers from being located within 1,000 feet of a school. Another House Bill, 2014, prevents pot sellers from being located within a mile of a school. That's what I said, a mile. House Bill 2781 forbids daycare providers from receiving state funds if they have medical marijuana cards. State Senate Doug Whitsett, Republican from Klamath Falls, sponsoring the state school zone bill. He says kids already have easy access to marijuana, and he doesn't want it to get it even easier. When asked for his other concern with legalized pot, he joked, "Do you have a few days?" So this shows the prejudices that we're having. These lawmakers are supposed to be crafting I say crafting, they should just be enacting, but of course, no, they can't enact it. They got to do the changes, so they got to change it. So they're going to be doing changes, and they got prejudices against marijuana. You know, what's wrong with this picture? Anyway, it's it's an interesting dilemma, so we'll see where we're at. Now we have another article here, and this is January 14th. This has predated the other one a little bit. This is written, this was in the Oregonian. It's on Oregon Live, the internet's version of the Oregonian. A gusher of marijuana bills, including a pregnancy warning, is introduced in the Oregon legislature. From bills seeking to change a marijuana legalization measure passed by Oregon voters to propose limits on how many medical marijuana patients a doctor can see, pot is a big issue at the legislature this year. At least 16 bills marijuana related were introduced on Monday, which is January 12th, when legislators were sworn into office, and many were in the works. You can't see the passage of something major like that and not think that you need to figure out how to manage it, said Representative Julie Parrish, Republican, notice the R, West Lynn, who has two bills aimed at cracking down on marijuana use by daycare providers. Legislative leaders last month set up a special House-Senate committee on marijuana to look at how the state should implement Measure 91. Under the measure, possession of up to 8 ounces of marijuana at home will become legal on July 1st, and retail sales will start in 2016 and be regulated by the Oregon Liquor Control Commission. That gives the legislature plenty of time to weigh in, with lawmakers already talking about such big picture issues as whether to allow taxes on marijuana. Measure 91 says only the state can levy taxes, and how strictly to limit the sales of marijuana-infused cookies and candies. The first batch of bills shows legislatures have plenty of other issues they want to bring to the table. Representative John Lively, Democrat in Springfield, introduced a measure, House Bill 2636, that limits a physician to approving medical marijuana cards for no more than 450 patients. Lively said he's been disturbed that so few doctors are approving most of the patient requests for medical marijuana cards. The Oregonian found in 2012 that just 9 doctors had approved half of the 56,531 medical marijuana patients and applications at that time. I'm honestly very much in favor of medical marijuana, but I'm not in favor of being willy-nilly, said Lively. Doctors who approve most of the medical marijuana patients work through high-volume clinics, with the owners saying they are willing to fill a need that most physicians won't. So there's the reason why there's only a few doctors, because there's not a lot of doctors will sign them because they're afraid to, because of the government's harassment. So anyway, back to the article. Republican Greg Smith, Republican, from Hepner, has two bills that could severely limit sales of marijuana in the state. House Bill 2040 would prohibit retail sales within 1 mile of school, and House Bill 2040 would allow localities to set up a 1 mile exclusion zone around schools. What's this thing about really concerned about schools? That seems to be one of the big themes this year, is they got to protect the kids from marijuana, which is that's a real joke because it's already out there, but and don't need protecting. But anyway, see, Smith could not be reached for comment Tuesday, but his bill would be a major step toward beyond the 1,000-foot exclusion zone for pot retailers included in Measure 91. The pregnancy warning. Senator Mary Moniz Anderson, Democrat, Gresham, wants pot retailers and medical marijuana dispensers to display warning signs for pregnant women. She claims that she introduced Senate Bill 445, said research indicates that use of marijuana by pregnant women could heighten health risks to their babies. The University of California San Francisco Medical Center has this to say about marijuana use in pregnancy. Although the effects of marijuana on an unborn child are still unknown, studies have indicated that prenatal marijuana use is linked to premature births, small birth size, difficult or long labor, and increase in newborn stillness. Daycare providers. Parish is seeking House Bill 2781 that would prohibit state funds from going to daycare providers with medical marijuana cards. So it goes on, and they've got a lot of nutty bills here, but we hope that we can fight them back and keep our marijuana laws intact. Hopefully even implement them like the people voted on. That would be a unique situation. So we'll see you next week. Thanks for watching the show.